booties for black girl nerds.
Thank you, John and Jennifer, for your Saturday time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I enjoyed this so much because there's a lot packed in, but it's still very digestible. There's a lot of social commentary, and we got some great origin information for Peacemaker. Hardcore serves a great function in his life. But I will begin with you, John. Cancel culture would have a field day with Peacemaker if that existed within their universe. Although he's super flawed, we still find ourselves wanting him to get it right. What makes a character like this redeemable compared to, say, other anti-heroes, villains that we've seen in other projects? There's something still very endearing about Peacemaker.
That's a good perspective. I think there's a huge difference between a villain and an anti-hero. A villain is rotten to the core evil, just as a superhero would be 100% virtuous. I think an anti-hero is, man, we could use human being as that word, because an anti-hero is flawed, and it's someone who may not even be trying to pursue virtue or thinks they're virtuous and is not brave enough to face their flaws. And I think that's what makes anti-heroes so interesting. I often say that at least when I look at my own social circles, the people who dominate my thoughts and conversations are the one I want to reach an olive branch to and be like, I know you can do it, man. Just if we just get a little help, or like, so when I'm talking about someone, so-and-so's doing great, but they just got to get out of their rut. We want to help those people in our lives, and we want to root for those people that we're close to that we know can do better. And I think that's a lot of the intrigue to Peacemaker, as you saw flickering moments in the Suicide Squad, that he is not 100% a villain. He does a lot of nefarious stuff, and he hides it under the guise of fighting for peace, but it doesn't mean he's 100% rotten to the core. And I think that makes for a very interesting journey.
For sure. Jennifer, with your character with Hardcore, what I admire most is she doesn't have to wear her toughness, her abilities on her sleeve. She largely is unassuming and just wants to function within this faction and get the ball over the goal line for what their task is this season. What is her best qualities, do you think? And what do you think are her worst qualities?
So Harcourt is, she's really closed off and sort of not, what is the word I want to use? You can't really penetrate her. She just has such a wall up. And I know that serves her in her job, because she does just want to get the mission completed, and that is her goal. And she has this mentality that vulnerability and shenanigans, those types of things will get you killed in this line of work. So she just doesn't have any room for that stuff. In her work, that really serves her, but in her personal life, that's probably one of her biggest flaws, because she doesn't know how to balance that in her personal life and have any sort of vulnerability in her personal life. So I think probably that works both to her benefit and to her detriment in her life.
Well, I thank you guys. I binged the first 7 episodes. I've gone 1 through 7 in one setting, and it turned me out. I loved it. I thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it, and I can't wait for other people to see it so I can talk about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time on a Saturday. I appreciate it very, very much.
Hi, Jeandra.
Hey, Jeandra.
What's up?
Hi, Jeandra.
My goodness, this pairing of you guys today is so interesting to me because Mr. Smith is very much, we'll dive into him a little bit, very much alpha, and our friend Beard is very much a beta. And none of your interactions are really together. It's not dyed, damn it, and it's not a Sharpie either. But your the pairing of you all is very, very interesting to me because your characters never really interact with each other. Robert, beginning with you, we learn about the origins of Peacemaker, why he's the way he is as a result of his household, and there's some very deep rooted racist issues there. But also with that, he's so mean. When you think of the meanness of him and people you've encountered in your life who were mean, what would you say is why is he so mean? You know, the racism is a whole nother thing, but just mean on top of that.
Oh, he just Chris is just such a disappointment to him. He has an ideal of what he thinks his son should be, and the son's not living up to it. So this Augie's just a horrible human being. James did such a nice job creating him to exemplify how horrible Peacemaker is. So he had to have a really, really bad father. I'm glad to be paired with Steve and Peter both because they're both funny and it adds a little humor to this mix. So I'm thrilled to be paired with them.
Yeah, I agree because for Auggie, you know, he doesn't have that comedic punch like all of the other characters do. Steve, for example, for John, you know, even within those trying to find his footing and being so henpecked and, you know, picked on by everyone else, he still has those comedic punches. What is the
you have to? I mean, as a nerd growing up, you know, you use humor as a defense mechanism. So I really identified with him on that.
Mm-hmm. When you read through this for the first time, all of these characters are so interesting and dynamic. How long did it take you to venture from your own character to see what everyone else was doing in the mix as it related to him?
Oh, like immediately. I mean, James is such a great writer. Like I was telling somebody the other day, like a script is easier to learn and memorize and actually act when everything in it makes sense. I've done things where writers write things that like just grammatically would never even be said. And James just has dialogue nailed and he has characters nailed. So every character in this made sense. I knew people like, well, with the exception of Robert's character, I knew a lot of people like everyone in here. And so you got a real good idea, you know, just reading the scripts, you know, before we even got on set, what these characters were like. It all made sense.
I think he wrote some humor for Auggie too, though. I think a lot of the lines that Auggie has are quite funny. If you get into the spirit of just how evil he is.
Yeah.
I thought James did a great job with Augie's dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to watch it the whole way through. No breaks. I was able to see the 7 episodes. It was
wow.
You see more than me.
Me too.
Man, I went down the rabbit hole and I had to lean in. It was fascinating to me
it's
because
so entertaining, right?
It really is. And there's a lot of messaging, but it's still very digestible. You know, I do this test where if I can remember all the character names after the first episode, then an episode has me. And I was able to remember without looking, oh, this is this person, this is that person. Peter, when you have a show like this with a big ensemble cast with a lot of messaging, what does it make it? Because there's a lot that is in this show, relationships, you know, patriotism, a lot of, you know, what does it make it into a show like this?
Well, you know, I'll tell you, everything that James wanted to be in the show makes it into the show. He had an absolute clarity of vision from the get-go. When he, you know, he wrote all 8 of these episodes on spec. He wrote them just in, you know, basically while he was quarantining. And then he's got 8 episodes of television. He goes, you know, this is what I would like to do. And I'll tell you something, and these guys know because they read the early drafts, it never changed. He really knew the character arc for every single one of these characters for the entire ensemble from the get-go. So he knew obviously what he wanted to do with Chris Smith, and that was, you know, what drove the idea of doing a series about Peacemaker, the kind of a look at toxic masculinity and, you know, what does it really mean to be a man, and, you know, though that exploration. But he really knew the arc for every, you know, for Harcourt, Economos, for Myrn. You know, he really knew what he wanted to do, and it just never changed. And I think that his clarity of vision is what enabled us to make such a great show, in those COVID circumstances and with all the challenges that existed. We really made something that I think is the most unedited version of James Gunn's mind. Like, this show really reflects James.
Mm-hmm. Robert, with every good racist character, you got to have a mullet. What'd you think of the mullet?
Well, you want to hear the funny idea? Peter was there when this happened. This is hysterical. You're gonna like this. Jeandra, they came to a point where they said, Robert, we got to make you look younger. And I said, oh, that's interesting. How are you going to do that? They said, well, it might be a lot of CGI and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I know about this thing that you can tape behind throw my throat up and kind of, it'll give me a youthful look, but I don't know how you're going to tie it off in the back there. And this is how genius James Gunn is. He looked at me, he goes, well, we'll be able to tie off, we'll cover it up with a mullet. You wear a mullet. And that's the genesis of the mullet.
That's the day I met Robert, was when they were trying on his mullet in the makeup trailer.
What did you have to do one of these? Like, what the hell?
Oh, it was amazing. I watched the transformation in real time. Like, they tape him back, and sure enough, they put the mullet on and it covers everything.
Presto, I was 30 years younger.
I'm gonna get one of those. I don't need the mullet, but I'll take the taping back. That was pretty cool.
Yeah,
and lastly, Peter, this is just it's so unique. It's very different. There are a lot of shows that try to portray anti-heroes, just different levels of heroes. And this is totally unique to all of those. What are you most proud of with this series as we await the premiere?
The goal was to create something that didn't exist on television today, that was unlike any other episodic show, not just any other superhero show, but any other show on television. And I think, being able to expand James's vision over the course of 8 episodes is what I'm most proud of, because it's a show that blends incredible heart, humor, action, in a way that, through the lens of James, it's unique. And I think we really achieved that goal. I mean, that was what we were going for. And I know you've seen the first 7. I cannot wait for you to see episode 8.
Yeah.
I mean, we held it back for a reason, but I think you'll see that it's a completely unique show that we ended up creating. And that's what I'm most proud of.
Well, I'm hype. I'm into it. I can't wait. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thanks,
I enjoyed it. I really, really did. And I appreciate you all talking to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeandra.
Take care. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for your time on this fine Saturday. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. Freddie, beginning with you, I swear Vigilante is the ally that I never knew I needed until I saw him at work. With Peacemaker is so rigid when he's not being politically incorrect. And with Vigilante, you have this kind of gnat-like quality, but he does have these moments of clarity and real intelligence. What makes that relationship work? Because there can be so on the opposite sides of the spectrum on so many things.
Well, it's a weird relationship. The best I can describe it is a sort of younger brother looking up to his older brother. And I feel like Peacemaker's definitely, he's trying to figure out his moral spectrum, and Vigilante's very much on the on the far end, where he's kind of, you can't really tell what he's thinking, and so I don't know. It's a weird one where I think he's got certain elements that are very similar to Peacemaker, so they bond over that. But there's definitely they're also very different as well.
Quite. See, I wore this blue just for you because in the celebration of our new allyship.
Yeah,
Matt, within the comedy, there's a lot of social commentary going on here with race, class, foundational belief. There's so much packed in, but it's told in such an interesting way. When you have a series that has all these elements, what doesn't make it? When is it?
What's on the cutting room floor?
Yeah, like what doesn't make it all the way in? Because I feel like it is just like a Pandora's box and we get a lot, but it's still you can still digest it.
I mean, there were some things that did not make it into the cuts. and even didn't even get shot, you know. But you have to understand, like, so for James, he's playing around with some really complex themes here, right? And so you have to allow yourself creatively to see how close you can get to that line, and still allow your characters to be redeemable, right? Particularly with Peacemaker. Not as much with his father, who obviously is the villain of the piece, but to understand the influence of his father, understand who that guy is, but still be able to love and root for that guy later. So I think he did a really masterful job of having, and John, in playing that character, you know, you're able to empathize with him, and you're able to see sort of the origins of where all of that, like, in some ways, slightly hateful rhetoric comes from. And so because John's so likable, and you're able to understand it, you believe it, and you believe his sort of redemption through the course of the series. But there were definitely some things that, even with the Vigilante character, that, like, we talked about and ultimately decided it was too much. I can't reveal what that is.
You know, if you ever do a Lost Files at the studio, I could come by.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That'd be dope.
Exactly. It never even got shot.
Freddie, with those themes, I mean, your character is so interesting. All the characters are very layered, very interesting. Obviously, you dive into your own character when you're preparing to shoot it, but how long did it take to pique your curiosity to read about everyone else? Because everyone else has some very unique things going on, even as they relate to Vigilante.
Pretty quickly. I mean, it's, you know, as soon as I read Vigilante, it was, you know, the first thing that hits you is the comedy, and you're just like, oh wow, this is fun. And then you kind of, and you see all these crazy layers, and you're like, oh, this is intense. And then you also, for this, it was very different. I've never been on a TV show before where you get all 8 episodes straight away. Usually you shoot, and then as you finish an episode, in comes the next episode, and you're figuring it out. So I got to read the whole show straight away, and just, you know, I got to then dive into everyone's characters and just the crazy balance of where everyone stands, and they kind of complement each other in such a great way, which is, you know, sometimes there's such un-PC things said, but it's nice to have other characters who then call them out on it, and then it creates that discussion, and then that's what's really fun. But it's such a great combination of characters.
Mm-hmm. Matt, with what you said about having them on the spectrum where you have to leave room for them to be redeemed, how do you categorize Peacemaker and Vigilante? Are they anti-heroes? Are they bad guys with a heart? What kind of a category do they even belong in, or can you even put them in a category?
I think they are anti-heroes. I mean, they're a little even unusual for what we've come to expect of an anti-hero, but in the sense that, you know, both of them ultimately have their hearts in the right place and end up doing the right thing and become heroic. But, you know, the journey to get there isn't always like the cleanest. And that's why, you know, I think James was probably so drawn to this character of Peacemaker, because of the fact that there wasn't so much already brought to it from all these other different versions. And he wasn't so glossy and so clean. And you were able to do a really much more interesting, nuanced portrayal of this deeply, deeply flawed human being, than something maybe that's been a little bit more, you know, sort of told over time and has that sort of built-in fan base to it. But I would definitely categorize them both. I mean, Vigilante, like, you know, I think Peacemaker a little bit more than Vigilante maybe is really striving for an ethos of peace. I think Vigilante kind of likes kicking ass, you know, he likes putting on the uniform and like being somebody, you know, and that's, and for someone who probably didn't feel throughout most of his childhood and his life like he was somebody and he mattered, this is like his opportunity to really have his life have meaning.
I was into Vigilante. I'm going to tell you, Freddie.
He's awesome.
I don't want to spoil it, but there's a scene that comes later in the season where someone puts a battery in his back to go start some stuff in an institution. And it was just the cadence of how you delivered that when you're talking to this people. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
How do you nail the cadence on that? Because I was leaning in. I'm like, come on, Freddie, get them together. That killed me.
Yeah, that was a fun scene to shoot. And also just that was a heavy vigilante episode, so it was just very very well written as well. I mean, when you've got James's writing, there's not too much work that has to be done. You read it and you go, oh, I see these rhythms. Oh, I see what he's going for. And you're just trying to push their buttons and hit them with some truth. So it was a lot of fun to shoot. And obviously we had, I don't want to give too much away, but they were stunt guys and very lovely actors, but obviously they're portraying not so lovely people. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Vigilante is off the chain, but I'm still team Vigilante. But thank you guys for your time. I enjoyed this very, very, very much. And I appreciate you talking to me. Thank you again.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
You too. Take care.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.